The Pittsburgh Steelers lost 13-6 to the Browns in a way where they had several opportunities to clinch the division, and now it comes down to a Week 18 matchup with the Ravens. Who's most at fault? I'll talk about it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And a reminder that Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Steelers fans, it is not a victory Monday because the Steelers did not pull out the win over the Cleveland Browns. They lost 13-6 in Cleveland. Their fourth straight year losing there. They haven't won since 2021. Yeah, so fourth straight year losing to the Browns in Cleveland. It continues to be a bit of a house of horrors for the Steelers. And you're looking around, you're looking to blame things because you're angry. And listen, I get it. Fans are definitely mad about this one. And this was a game that the Steelers had very much in their hands. They checked off a lot of the boxes that we talked about that they needed to check in this game. They need to be efficient running the ball. They weren't efficient enough, but Jaylen Warren did average over 5 yards per carry. They needed to shut down the Browns' run game so that they didn't make things easier for Shedeur Sanders. They did that. 11 carries for 27 yards, less than 3 yards per carry for Dylan Sampson. Their backup running back, less than 3 yards per carry for him as well. Browns running backs were not a factor in this game. They needed to create turnovers. They did that. 2 interceptions on Shedeur Sanders, one by Kyle Duggar, one by Jack Sawyer. Granted, a dropped pick 6 from Nick Herbig, which could have flipped the game in the Steelers' favor and maybe even won the game for the Steelers. But you can't be too mad at a defense that shuts out a team for 3 quarters of play. It only gives up 13. Well, they did shut them out, but they're 2 quarters of play, and they give a field goal because the offense basically handed them the ball in the fourth quarter at the 20-yard line. But you can look at the offense and you can ask what happened here. Now, we can get into the DK Metcalf stuff and the suspension, and especially since now there's new evidence that has been brought to light by Jay Glazer. We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about what didn't happen on the field for the Steelers, and that was that the passing game never was able to take off. And the times that it did take off, it went to the players that I thought they should have been using the whole time. And this, to me, does come down to game planning. It does come down to execution, and it does come down to who does Aaron Rodgers target in certain moments. It seemed like that when the Steelers were trying to go to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who finished the game with the most targets, 9 on the day. He only had 3 catches for 21 yards. 2 of those targets came in the end zone on 3rd and 4th and goal when the game was on the line. The Steelers absolutely had to have a touchdown. The passing offense was non-existent for pretty much the entire game outside of the end of the first half when they started to hit on some quick passes to try to get the ball down the field and get in field goal range for Chris Boswell, and the end of the second half when they were trying to get the ball down the field again to get in touchdown range. And what was the key to that second half? They started hitting Pat Freiermuth, who is their best receiving threat when DK Metcalf isn't on the field. We've known this for a while. Kenneth Gainwell is also a big threat. Another thing, Kenneth Gainwell was wide open, probably would have walked into the end zone on that 4th down if Aaron Rodgers looks at him. And then when you look at the way that the game played out, Darnell Washington going down with a broken arm, that's a big one. But I just think that Aaron Rodgers missed on several opportunities to see the field and attack in the right ways that would have countered what the Browns were doing. And yes, there's a lot at stake here. You're dealing with a completely replaced left side of the offensive line against Myles Garrett, and everyone knows that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo basically rooting the whole game for Myles Garrett to break a sack. And even when another player got a sack, they thought it was Myles Garrett. You hear Jim Nantz say, "There it is," and then he was like, "Oh, that's not Myles Garrett. I'm gonna calm down now." But I thought that there was a clear effort to keep him limited, and they did their job there. They kept him from wrecking the game. That's part of the formula. But the other parts of the formula are getting the ball to your playmakers, and that's just not what the Steelers did in this spot. And I'd say that there were problems in designs, and we can point to designs. There were certainly some play calls that were baffling. The 4th and 1 deep ball to Scotty Miller. Why? But some of those also were straight up decisions by Aaron Rodgers where he tried certain things that just didn't make any sense. In fact, looking at the playlist, I misspoke. It wasn't just 2 tries; it was 3 straight targets to Marquez Valdes-Scantling with the game on the line. I think all 3 times Denzel Ward is guarding him. And listen, I understand that Rodgers has a history with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but that history should not tell you that I should try every 3 straight plays with that guy up against one of the top corners in the NFL. Just a complete mistake there. I thought on some of the passes you had a better shot with Pat Freiermuth, but definitely on the last pass, 4th and 7, you got Kenneth Gainwell on an angle route. He beats his man. Everyone else is looking around the field. It was him in the end zone, and your best player, the guy who leads your team literally in receptions, even over DK Metcalf, and he couldn't get a look in the biggest moment. That, to me, is where the Steelers fell truly the most short in this game, was not getting the ball to their playmakers, the guys that do make things happen. And listen, the Browns defense deserves credit because they were taking away certain things, but they didn't play an elite game. There were several guys open throughout this game, and Aaron Rodgers should have been able to manage this situation. And this is where I think things really fell for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was that they thought that they could try to come in and they could try to use different passing looks to try to create certain looks for Aaron Rodgers, and they just didn't work. They needed to actually use Freiermuth, use Gainwell, use guys to get the ball down the field and prove, hey, if the number 1 receiver's out, you can survive without him. And they didn't in this game. And that's going to be a big question going into next week when they play a Ravens team that's coming off a huge upset win over the Packers to force this Week 18 showdown that's going to determine the division and who goes to the playoffs out of the AFC North. And that's, and this is not the kind of performance you want to be coming off of to be in that situation. DK Metcalf, isn't going to be in this game. Darnell Washington broke his arm. Mike Tomlin didn't rule him out for the future, but you imagine a broken arm probably going to rule you out for at least a week. So there's a lot there that's going to be, I think, going to be interesting for the Steelers to how they adjust their passing attack. But I thought also the offensive line showed they could have run the ball more. Again, Jaylen Warren rushing for over 5 yards per carry. I did think Kenneth Gainwell got limited a bit in his opportunities, 7 carries for 26 yards. But both those guys had 15-yard runs. They even did a fake tush push, the Spartan play that they use, where Connor Hayward took it as an option and kept it himself and got 29 yards off of it. I thought there should have been more opportunities for the Jonnu Smith, Kenneth Gainwell option run play, where they do either the jet sweep to Kenneth Gainwell or the run to Jonnu Smith. I thought the Steelers could have locked in a little bit more on that instead of trying to force passing plays to Scotty Miller and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And listen, there's times you got to spread the ball around. You got to get the ball to certain guys. But you had 16 plays where you targeted Valdes-Scantling or Scotty Miller. And with those 16 plays, you completed 6 of them for about 46 yards. That's not very efficient of an offense there in trying to move the ball. And again, you had more targets to either of those guys than you had to Pat Freiermuth. Then you had to Kenneth Gainwell, who got 4 targets for 3 catches, 12 yards in this game, to Jaylen Warren. Jonnu Smith at least got some targets in this game. Granted, he got hit behind the line of scrimmage on all those pop screens a lot, so he had 5 of 5 for 18. And I think one of those were the plays where Aaron Rodgers got hit, and technically it should have been like a sack fumble, but Jonnu Smith caught it. Whatever. Point being, this was an opportunity the Steelers had in front of them. They could have gotten this part of their game together, getting the ball to Pat Freiermuth, getting the ball to Kenneth Gainwell, get the ball to Jaylen Warren, get the ball to your playmakers in the right spots, and they could have won this game because those playmakers could have made plays. And we saw at the end of the game when Pat Freiermuth was getting the ball over the middle and catching the ball and getting yards after the catch. And it was like when the game was on the line, they went away from it. And all game, they stayed away from it. That is the thing that I think has gotten the Steelers way a lot this season. And listen, this isn't to say it's all Arthur Smith. I think some of it is, but there needs to be an emphasis for, hey, Aaron, let's get the ball to our guys. I know that you probably have guys that you think they do the details right, and that's what we're focusing on here. But you missed opportunities to the team's best playmakers, and in a game that if you get this win, it puts you in the playoffs. You needed it. And I think that's got to be a lesson this team carries forward with it next week to the Ravens. Because if they go into this game and have a similar type of offensive output, the defense is not going to be able to contain the Ravens the way they contain the Browns this week. Because the Ravens will have a better O-line, they'll have a better attack, even with or without Lamar Jackson. Snoop Huntley's a much more experienced quarterback. You saw what he did to the Packers. This defense is going to need to put in another top performance, but even when it does, this offense has to do enough with the playmakers that it has, and it has playmakers to move the ball, put the ball in the end zone, and let the defense play with a lead. That never happened in this game, and you played right into the hands of a Browns team that was desperate for a win, try to feel good at the end of the season. Yes, you stopped Myles Garrett from getting his sack that broke the record with you in the game, but at the same time, you needed to win this game, and now it's going to all come down against the Ravens. We're going to break down the defense, my thoughts there, because I did think there were some good things that had to be had there, and where this team needs to be focused on getting better in a week's time when they play the Ravens. I'm recording this 6:13 p.m. Sunday evening, so I don't know when exactly this game is scheduled, but knowing my luck, Steelers-Ravens night game, your boy's going to be up late. But we'll break down more of that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you that this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and all things happening at once. While we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats: fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here, continuing our reaction to the Steelers' loss to the Browns, 13-6, dropping the team to 9-7 on the year and putting the season all on the line against the Ravens. Now, I did allude to this. You might have missed this in the pregame lead up to the Steelers-Browns game, but there was a report that came from Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, and he said that there was he got his hands on the security report. And again, the security report from last year when the Seahawks played the Lions, when DK Metcalf initially reported the Lions fan that he got into an altercation with Ryan Kennedy, and that in that report there was corroborating evidence from fans in the stands around Ryan Kennedy who said he said the derogatory comments that were being quoted. And Jay Glazer wouldn't quote the exact comments, but considering what we've heard from James Harrison, Chad Ochocinco, Tom Pelissero, several people over, you can kind of see you can kind of understand what those were. So that being said, DK Metcalf, it's not going to bring DK Metcalf back. I doubt the NFL backtracks on an appeal that they've already decided upon. His 2-game suspension is going to be upheld. But man, did that 2-game suspension, the first time a player has ever been suspended by the NFL for interacting with fans, despite several altercations over the years. That certainly comes in a huge time that forces the Steelers into a corner without their top receiver when they needed to win at least one game to clinch an AFC playoff berth and make that Week 18 game not matter. Now, I will say, in this game, we talked about what the offense needed to do without DK Metcalf. There was a way to win it. The defense did what they were supposed to do in this game. Yes, they gave up an early score. Shedeur Sanders came out moving the ball a little bit. He threw a duck of a pass that was caught for a touchdown. But the rest of the game, the Steelers defense locked it down. And they figured out, hey, they're doing this. Let's adjust. And they took away what Shedeur Sanders wanted to do. And Kevin Stefanski had an interesting script to start the game. But once the Steelers figured out the script, the Browns couldn't do anything. Their only field goal after the first quarter came when the Steelers offense went for it on 4th and 10 and didn't get it, and they gave the Browns the ball at the 20, and they still couldn't move the ball. The defense is still playing at a higher level, and that's probably the best hope for this team right now, is that this defense can continue to play at a high level to force the issue. The Browns were held to 4 of 11 on third downs in this game, only 11 first downs total on the game. the Steelers get 2 turnovers in this game. And yes, maybe they should have had a third with that Nick Herbig interception that either sets up a field goal or probably is a pick six with the way that the play was playing out. They missed their opportunities, but I thought the defense came to work in this game. I thought, in a game where they were still down several players, TJ Watt didn't play. It looks like he's probably going to be able to return for the regular season finale against the Ravens. But Nick Herbig, I thought, filled in well. Jack Sawyer got another interception. I thought he played well in the spots. I thought Alex Highsmith wrecked the game for the Steelers defense, and he really kept the Browns in check a lot. He continues to show he is much better than what people made it out to be. Cam Hayward, still Cam Hayward. Derek Harmon, still a force against the run. The defense, Patrick Queen, I thought this was a really good game for Patrick Queen. He kept things tied together. And I thought the defense did enough to win this game. When you hold a team to 13 points, really 10 points without that extra field goal at the end, I think you deserve to be able to win. And again, they created multiple turnovers. They got multiple stops in crucial situations. They were all over what the Browns were trying to do, running the ball, throwing the ball, whatever it was. I mean, and especially you look at this, and I think this is the real shame of the Steelers offense not being able to get it done. The Browns had the ball 4 times before they kneeled out the game at the end of the game. They had 4 drives in the fourth quarter. None of those drives were longer than none of those drives were longer than 4 plays. They had 2 plays and an interception, a 4 and out, a 3 and out, and then a field goal after 3 plays. There was never a drive where they gained a first down in the fourth quarter. In fact, they only gained 2 first downs in the second half total, and those 2 came in the third quarter when they gained 17 yards. But that is what I think makes the Steelers' offense's putrid performance in this game even more shameful and more frustrating for the Steelers, is that this defense gave them every chance to win this game. And yes, they came out, allowed a decent drive for a field goal, allowed a touchdown drive after that, and that was frustrating. But they get a turnover on downs, an interception, and again, they don't let them score again until the Browns are handed the ball at the 20-yard line. I think this defense is figuring things out. And no, the Browns offense isn't something special to like flex at stopping. But you know what? That Bills defense just last week, they held the Browns to just 20 points. And so I do think this defense is turning a corner quite a bit. I do think the defense is figuring some things out. And they need to put it all together next week against the Ravens. Whether or not Lamar Jackson plays, that's going to be a big story here. But, Joey Porter Jr. continues to look like he's locked in and doing his job. I thought that there was a lot of signs there that this defense is figuring things out. And I look at things, and I look at the game plan. Things make sense. The pass rush is working even without TJ Watt in this game. But I'm not too down on the defense right now. I'm not too down on the defensive game plan from Terrell Lawson. I think that they've made the adjustments that they've needed to make a lot, especially down the final stretch of this season. This goes back to the offense not capitalizing, and particularly Aaron Rodgers when they had their chances in this game. And yes, there are certain calls that are disappointing that the Steelers didn't get them to go their way. The final play when Denzel Ward just has his hands all over Marquez Valdes-Scantling while the ball's in the air and he's not looking for it. That's one of those plays that if Joey Porter does that, he probably gets tagged for a penalty. You could point to several times throughout the game. Scotty Miller catches a big play and Marquez Valdes-Scantling is called for a pick play when he didn't even run into a guy. There were just several points throughout the game where I thought, that was not a situation the Steelers could afford some really bad calls in those spots. But you put yourself in that situation if you're the Steelers when you go 3 of 15 on third down and 0 of 3 on fourth down. And the Steelers offense had been a really good red zone offense for most of the season, one of the better red zone offenses in the NFL, and they don't get a single touchdown in this game. And twice they were in the red zone. That's what it comes down to. The Steelers had to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think that's where it's truly disappointing, is that the Steelers had been good at those opportunities. And in general, the Steelers had not been an offense that had produced a lot of yards. They had created, a lot of, plays where they were getting explosive plays, but they took advantage of the opportunities the defense gave them or that circumstances played out. When they had a short field, they capitalized on it. When they got in the red zone, they capitalized. When they had 3rd and 4th and 1, they capitalized on it. In this game, They didn't capitalize on those opportunities. And when you don't, that puts you behind. And again, it's a one-score game. Opportunities were there for you. But, if anyone tries to point to the defense and say what they didn't do in this game, I think you're pointing in the wrong direction. But that might not be the case next week when they have to take on the Ravens, and the Ravens team is going to be just as desperate as the Steelers coming into Acrisure Stadium. Everything will be on the line. I want to get you my thoughts on that and what they're up against moving forward. Next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you that our show is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real, no one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise changes at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools with offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save me hours every week. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here today. And now, again, we pull down to the Steelers and where they stand here. And what do they do now? Where do they go from here? I listened to the press conferences of Mike Tomlin, Cam Hayward, Aaron Rodgers. It didn't seem like there was any shell-shockedness out of those guys. They were certainly disappointed in the result, but they're like, hey, the pressure's the pressure. This is what you live for in the NFL. You still control your own destiny, and that's what the Steelers have in front of them with a game against the Ravens in Week 18. And certainly, this is a missed opportunity. You could have beaten down a 3-win team with a rookie quarterback. And again, your defense did your job to limit the rookie quarterback and to create opportunities. But you had your opportunity to go in, get this win, and make Week 18 not matter. And now, Week 18 is for all marbles. And this is a Ravens team that on Saturday night looked rejuvenated. They looked like they figured some things out. They were able to put some important wins together, or an important win together against the Packers team on the road. And that Packers team, yeah, sure, they had their backup quarterback, but look who was carrying the Ravens in that game. Derrick Henry, 36 carries, 216 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. Tyler Huntley, they call him Snoop, 16 of 20 for 107 and a touchdown. Not a huge game from him, but again, doing enough. He also had 8 carries for 60 yards, doing enough to make the Ravens work. And when the Ravens leaned on Derrick Henry, it was a problem. Now, the Steelers in this game, when they last played the Ravens, I believe that was Week 13 when they played the Ravens, or Week 14, one of those weeks, Week 14. When they played the Ravens, they beat them 27-22. They contained the Ravens run game. Yes, the Ravens still ran for 200 in total yards, but a lot of that was coming from Keaton Mitchell's 55-yard run and then some scrambles from Lamar Jackson. They held Derrick Henry under 100 yards, and every time they've held Derrick Henry to less than 5 yards per carry, and I believe, yes, less than 100 yards total, they have won the game against them. And that is where it's going to come down to. And this may be about the defense living up to what they have been when they've been playing better, and that's a better run defense. And you look at how the Steelers have played the run since that win over the Ravens and the loss that they had against the Bills those were the last 2 times they gave up a whole lot of rushing yards. But when you look at how they've played, they gave up 249 rushing yards to the Bills, 217 in a win over the Ravens. And then they faced Devon Achane, who was a premier running back and on a really good tear. They held that team to 63 yards on the ground. They held the Lions to 15 yards on the ground. And then you flash forward to this week when the Steelers played the Browns, and they took away the run game there as well. When you look at the totals there, again, less than 3 yards per carry for their running backs. The Browns ran for 78 yards, but That was over a long period of just running the ball to run the clock out as much as they could because they were hoping the Steelers offense didn't capitalize. If this Steelers run defense has truly taken a step forward, and that means Derek Harmon being healthy, Cam Hayward being Cam Hayward as he always been, Keanu Benton improving, guys like Y.A. Black filling in well, Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison all playing more concert with each other, more in sync with each other. Alex Highsmith being a record, Nick Herbig and Jack Story being factors, and if TJ Watt can be back, if this front can be a run stuffing unit and force the Ravens to take to the air to have to beat you, that's your formula to win. But here's the thing. They're going to need the offense to show up next week. And yes, here's the thing about this too. The Ravens defense, not the Browns defense at home. The Browns defense has, they gave the Bills fits a bit last week. They beat the Packers early in the season when the Packers were a bit better than they are right now. But this is a game where you're going to need that run defense to show up and be what it's supposed to be and what you've seen when it plays at its best. And you need them to have a good game, and it needs to be coupled with an offensive output that allows them to move the ball, possess the ball, and win that. I think that's the other thing that's disappointing about this game. The Steelers won the time of possession, barely, but they won it. And so it wasn't like they didn't have their opportunities to possess the football. But in that game, I think it was clear it was because of the defense. The defense kept getting the ball back. Again, the Browns had the ball in their final 1, 2, 3, I think it's 8 drives. I think in the Browns' final 8 drives of the game, they had owned the ball for only more than 4 plays once. That's what you want out of your defense. And granted, the Ravens are going to be a much better rushing offense, much better overall offense than the Browns next week. You're going to have home field advantage. You're going to be able to do that. But the Steelers need to be the rebounding team that they've been for most of this year when they've been able to bounce back. And yes, they've had back-to-back losses twice this season, once against the Bengals and the Packers, again against the Bears and the Bills. But they've been able to stop that bleeding, turn around and have some of their best performances after some of those losses. You think back to their loss to the Seahawks. They bounced back with a huge upset over the Patriots. And as we see, the Patriots are a major threat. So then that was such a huge win for the Steelers. You look back to their loss to the Packers. They bounced back with that really big upset win over the Colts. And we saw how good the Colts were then. After then, the Steelers kind of cracked the code. And once Danny Dimes went down, that was a wrap for them. You go back to their win over the Ravens. They bounced back from that loss over the Bills, played a tough game on the road, and they were able to win it. Now the Steelers have another loss that they have to bounce back from and find answers for. I think they can find answers. They certainly have found it throughout the year, but it's going to take a concerted focus from this team, and it goes back to what I led this game about, this show about, and it's about, I think, the Steelers got to get out of their own way and get their playmakers the ball when it's time to make plays. They need to be able to get Pat Freiermuth, Kenneth Gainwell, Jaylen Warren. Those are your primary targets, not Marquez, Valdes-Scantling. It's fine to use them as distractions. And I was okay with some of the earlier shots, like the first deep ball Aaron Rodgers threw to Marquez, Valdes-Scantling down the sideline. I get it. Take your shot. You have to scare the defense, say, hey, I will throw to this guy at some point. But when the game is on the line and they have their top corner on that guy, you got the decoy that you wanted. Denzel Ward isn't on Pat Freiermuth. He isn't on even Adam Thielen at this point. He's on a Marquez Valdes-Scantling that you can just scheme up, run the fade, and that's the best cover man for the Browns out of the play. And you can get the ball to Kenneth Gainwell. You can get the ball to Jaylen Warren. I think that's what you need to be focusing on in this upcoming game against the Ravens, because the Ravens don't have a Denzel Ward in their secondary. They have Kyle Hamilton, but you can get past Kyle Hamilton. In fact, the Steelers have. They need to be able to get this run game going. They need to be able to find the wheels, and they need to be able to get one game where they can win without their top receiver. That was the thing they couldn't do last season when George Pickens, he got suspended for something last season. He got into it with a Browns player. And now you have DK Metcalf suspended, and you need to get a win without him. And to me, that's going to be what it comes down to. Can the offense do enough there? Can the defense be the version of themselves that's been the best version of themselves when they've been good this year? That could very well determine the season. And that could very well determine what kind of team this Steelers team is. Because we've seen they have the ability to beat good teams. They also have the ability to lose the bad ones like they did in this game. We'll have a lot more to break down throughout the week on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm pretty sure that the Steelers will have an open locker room on Monday today, so I'll probably be in the facility. We'll have our Stars and Skulls grades out tomorrow here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll also be going over things like Tomlin's press conference on Tuesday. We'll also see when this game is actually scheduled. Your boy's hoping for a 1 p.m. kickoff, but we know we don't get such lucky things. But we thank everyone for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get your social media. You can find me at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday. Break it down, your Pittsburgh Steelers. Keep it here tomorrow. We'll be back with Stars and Skulls grades about this game and get you ready for what to expect with Steelers Ravens with the season on the line next week.